You're listening to Hockey Talk on the Rock
Alright, stop!
with Laura and Keith.
It's interesting.
So let's back up a second.
He played absolutely out of his mind.
It made no sense to me.
And now, here are your hosts.
Here we are, back again with Hockey Talk on the Rock, episode number 39. Doing a full episode this time round. So this is Laura, I'm Keith, we're here on Salt Spring Island, and it is Friday, June 11th, all day long. And we're going to start with a little coaching carousel score update, because, what was it, 2 days ago or yesterday, Columbus Blue Jackets promoted assistant coach Brad Larson, and now 4 of our 6 teams have coaches in place, and we're deadlocked at 2 apiece. So we're still waiting for Arizona and Seattle.
Yeah.
But that was the coaching news recently. Moving on from that, the Canucks had some coaching news to talk about.
Yep. And I think, I guess for me, the biggest one was Ian Clark out of that group, because I kind of changed my faith in him coming back when they re-signed Travis Green, because at first I thought they're both walking, and then when they got Green done, I was like, no, maybe they'll find a way to keep Clark as well. But I wasn't expecting 5 years, and I think that they probably didn't want to give him that term, which is probably why it took so long. And it sounds like ownership kind of stepped in at the last minute to get it done. But very happy that he's coming back. Again, we've talked about it a bunch, right? Him and Demko have worked really well together, and he's got a really proven track record of working with goalies. So that's great. Really like that.
Yeah, I like that one as well. I think it's hilarious that he was able to command that, especially with the general manager, the guy giving him the contract is only signed for 2 years, and to be able to just insist to have the parallel contract with the goalie is so awesome. I liked Ian Clark for his work before, but because of this, I now have a newfound respect for him. Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, I feel like he probably could have gotten a job anywhere, and he knew that, so he was like, okay, you're going to give me exactly what I want, because, yeah, I can. So that was great. Then they also hired Brad Shaw, who was an assistant coach with Columbus the past few years, and he's known to be very defensive-minded, and I also like that move. I think Anaheim was really in on hiring him as well, and there was another team that kind of wanted him, but the Canucks kind of won that signing, so that's nice to see as well. And then Jason King is also coming back to the fold for the Canucks, who famously played on the Sedin line for 2 months and then never played again. But if the Sedins come back, that will be funny as well. And then I can't remember the name of the last coach they hired. I feel really dumb, but out of Portland Winterhawk program, who he had been a video coach for them for nearly 2 decades. And worked with Travis before, so there's a connection there. Yeah. I'm excited for Shaw to come in, because he is more of a defensive guy. They're gonna obviously move him into focusing on the defense, and they're not bringing back Newell Brown, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on Newell Brown too, because I feel like he's gotten a bit of unfair hate over the past little bit, but he is a very good power play coach, and for people that don't believe that he is, in the last stint that he had with the Canucks, and I can't remember when he came back, it was 2015 or something, they've scored the same amount of power play goals as Washington.
Right.
And if you look at the quality of players that have played on those two teams over those periods of time, there's no reason why the Canucks should have as many power play goals as Washington. But I think it's kind of mutual. They probably both needed something new. I think Newell Brown's going to get a job really quick here. But the Canucks kind of needed a fresh face anyway on their coaching staff, so I understand them letting him go. But I guess overall, last off season, we were all kind of depressed because it felt like the Canucks were taking this big step backwards. Whereas this year, I kind of have a sense of optimism about the team that I didn't have necessarily coming into this year. So their core is still young. They've still got the pieces where they need to be. They obviously need to sign Hughes and Pedersen, and that will make a big kind of solidify how I feel about the team going forward. But there's a lot of positive stuff going on, and I don't really see that there's any reason to be too worried about the actual core group. So the coaching plays into that. So yeah.
Yeah, all interesting and good news, I think, moving forward, and sounds like optimistic future, like you say.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see here in the next little while what they do, like with the draft, and then who they lose to Seattle, and what they do in free agency, and all that stuff. So, but before the offseason kind of starts, I'm optimistic, so that's nice.
Now, the management moves are out of the way, and they can tick that box and then move on to the roster now, I guess.
Yeah.
Continuing on to the playoff news, I guess, around the NHL. We haven't talked since we filmed and then watched the first Montreal-Winnipeg game.
Feels like ages ago now.
It feels like ages ago, and obviously at the very end of the game was the big moment where Mark Scheifele destroyed Jake Evans. It was crazy. Like, it was actually insane to witness that. And then, I looked at you right away and said, well, that just cost Winnipeg the series. Like, I said that he was going to get 3 games. He ended up getting 4. It was insane. And it's unbelievable as well how much Winnipeg relies on him.
Yeah, I think it really showed, especially because they couldn't, I think Stastny was hurt, right? So that kind of eliminates or reduces the blame on him, but Dubois wasn't good. He says he wasn't hurt. I don't know if that's true or not, but normally speaking, you think that Winnipeg would have enough center depth to make up for it. And even without this position of center, you have Connor and you have Ehlers and you have Wheeler, you have guys who can kind of dominate offensively. But I know everyone's talking about how good Carey Price has been, and he's been good, but in game 4, I think, the game they got eliminated in the third period, before the third period started, I think Winnipeg only had 11 shots on goal or something.
Right.
So it's okay, he was good, but he didn't have to be spectacular. And obviously that's Montreal's biggest weapon, is that they have him back there. And so if you're not really relying on him, then you're probably going to win the series, hands down. But I do think Scheifele's importance to the team, both last year when he got hurt at the beginning of the playoffs, and then this year when he got suspended, really show just how much of a role he plays on that team. And it'll be interesting to see what they do in the offseason, because Winnipeg was one of those teams that I was disappointed with at the trade deadline, because I thought they should have done more, specifically for this reason, because this year was a gift for one of these Canadian teams to make it to the semifinals.
Yeah.
And if ever there was a year to go all in, I feel like it was this year. So yeah, I think they got to revamp their D a bit, and then I don't know what you do with that forward group, but I assume you probably just bring everyone back, kind of like Toronto. Yeah, but I guess props to Montreal. They clearly dominated that series. I don't think there was ever a moment after that first game, as you said, where I thought Montreal wasn't winning that series.
Right.
So.
Yeah, they are definitely built to win in the playoffs, and they're showing it now.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see the next round with them, but we'll get to that, because they'll be playing Vegas, who stormed back, and they won 4 straight after going down 2-0 to Colorado, which I don't like and did not expect. So I don't have much to say on it, but Colorado's got to be really disappointed.
I have quite a lot, and I'm going to try and not rant too much. But so for Vegas' side, the first 2 games, they looked really tired, they looked really bad, and I thought, okay, Colorado's going to steamroll them. Credit to Peter DeBoer, because I don't think he gets enough credit for how good a coach he is, but in my mind, that series was just him out-coaching Jared Bednar. He switched something actually in that second game, and Colorado was kind of lucky to win game 2, but from that moment onwards, they dominated the series. They were so like, they play such a heavy style game, and it was very impressive to watch. I don't like Vegas, but I don't think Colorado deserved to win that series after really that second game. Like, Vegas was clearly the better team. And yeah, I'm going to find it very interesting to watch them play Montreal, specifically because Vegas always seems to have problems. They've been around for 4 years, and you can say they always seem to have problems, but they do seem to have some sort of hang up in the playoffs about finishing series. Like, you saw it in the first round with Minnesota, and then last year with Vancouver specifically. And like, Vancouver was so in their head when they were playing Dallas, or like specifically Demko, that they ended up losing that series where they probably should have won. And yeah, like, it'll be very fascinating to watch them play Montreal, because I feel like for Montreal, that's the better team for them to play against. Like, if they played against Colorado, I wouldn't think they have a chance. But with Vegas, I'm like, yeah, I could see Montreal pulling it off, but it's gonna have to be, like, everything's gonna have to go right for them. Anyway, jumping from Vegas to Colorado. Colorado reminds me a lot of Toronto, except for the fact that their stars produce in the playoffs. But once Kadri got suspended, they didn't have enough depth on that team to do anything, and I think that was like the glaring problem. And they're going to be really interesting to watch in the offseason, because like obviously they're going to re-sign Landeskog. I don't even think that's a question, but they have like Grubauer, who needs a new deal. Makar's an RFA, and I don't know what he wants, but I assume he's going to get whatever he wants. Like, if he goes long term, he's going to get high dollars. And then, like, Brandon Saad and stuff like that are all gone. But it probably all matters what Makar does or what they do with Makar for all those other pieces, because he's going to be the biggest ticket, I would think. But Grubauer, I thought, was pretty disappointing in the playoffs, and I've never been that sold on him. And I know he got Vezina nomination, so it's going to be like an unpopular opinion right now. But that last game, he was awful, and I don't know. I just don't know about him being your number one guy long term. And I really, really hope this is my last point about Colorado, and it's stupid. Gotta change their pants back to black. It looks so bad in their white uniforms when they have those blue pants. It's all I can see. I just hate it so much, and it drives me nuts. And I know it's stupid, but there was a part of me that was like, I hope they don't win the Stanley Cup this year, because then they're never gonna change it back. So I can hold out hope.
Well, I mean, I think they look okay with the dark jerseys.
They're okay with the dark. I don't like it, but I hate it with the light.
Both the white and with them. Yeah. Yeah, and Colorado, I think you can see now, I think you can blame 2 early exits in the playoffs kind of on goaltending.
Yeah.
I mean, depth a little bit, like you say, with Kadri not there, but I feel like they're going to probably address that seriously this offseason. And Cale Makar will probably end up, like, I think we talked about how we feel like bridge deals are going to be a big thing, so they'll probably end up bridging him.
One last quick thing. Do you think they trade Kadri?
No, because I'm not sure someone's going to want to take him now.
I know, it's interesting, that one, because I feel like for a long time it was viewed like Colorado totally won that deal with Toronto, and now, well, it depends what Toronto does with Kerfoot, but I feel like it's more even. Anyway, I think they look into it.
I agree. Moving back on to, are we done with Colorado?
Yeah,
Vegas?
I think I got it all out.
Okay. Yeah, fascinating moving forward, and this is going to be a really great offseason, especially with the expansion draft. There's going to be a lot happening.
Yeah.
The next series was my Tampa guys.
Yeah.
Beat Carolina handily in 5 games. I don't have much to say except, like, I don't know. Tampa is rolling. Carolina's pissed off about the salary cap thing or whatever, but
I mean, I'm a little bit pissed off about it, just because of how much over it is. But it is the NHL's rules, and not to be super hypocritical, because I know the Canucks in 2011 were over by a lot during the playoffs as well. Thing I want to say quickly about Carolina, I think Tampa still wins the series, but I think it would have been a lot tighter if they had like Trocheck and Niederreiter in the lineup, because for like the whole series both those guys were done.
Right.
And I think Carolina is one of those teams that once they figure out their goaltending, they're gonna win a Stanley Cup. Like, they just look built in the right way to not... I know they have to figure out like Dougie Hamilton, and there's a number of things there, but I really like their core, and I think they have so much young talent that they have a really bright future, but Tampa's just too good. The interesting thing about Carolina, though, is that they still haven't figured out what they're doing with Brind'Amour. And
I thought they re-signed him for 3 years.
They didn't. They haven't done it yet.
Oh.
Yeah, so they've rumored they were gonna do it, and it still hasn't happened. And I was just listening to 31 Thoughts, and they were saying like strap in for what happens with Brind'Amour. So I don't know, like.
Interesting.
It'll be interesting to watch there with him, but I think they've got a good young team. But I think Tampa's pretty much destined to repeat here unless something crazy happens with injuries or something. But
yeah, I think you can kind of see Carolina's going to take the crown from Tampa if they stay in that division, in that setup. They would kind of emerge as overcoming them the next couple of years, because they are kind of like a younger version of them in a way.
That's kind of how I see it. But I don't have that much more about those two teams.
And then Tampa is going to be getting a rematch in the Eastern Conference Finals, if you want to call it that, with the Islanders after the Islanders wrapped up Boston in Game 6 there. Yeah. And, you know, the question, I guess, is this is it for Boston's old core, or are they going to start ripping things apart a little bit, or are they going to continue to go for it?
Yeah, so Boston is also, I think, going to be really interesting to watch this offseason because, you know, over the last, 15 years, they've never really been bad. It might even be longer than that. I can't remember a time when they've been, awful. They've been very good for a long time. Anyway, Rask is super fascinating. I know he's going to have surgery, he has multiple injuries, and he's going to be out for 6 months or something, but I don't know if this is it because he's repeatedly said he only wants to play in Boston. It seems to me like they do have their goalies of the future in Boston, but maybe they go out and bring in a veteran guy, or maybe they sign Rask to a 1-year deal and just say when you're ready, come back kind of thing.
Right.
I've heard that they might be in on Jack Eichel, and I don't know if that's just the Boston connection with Jack Eichel, because I don't see who they could give Buffalo unless you're giving them Pasternak.
Right.
I think they've got to do something though, drastic. I don't think it's just going to be bringing everyone back. Taylor Hall will be interesting to watch if he comes back to Boston. I think he wants to, so there's probably something there. But yeah, I mean, again, the Islanders at some point, I feel like people need to admit, and it's probably me as well, it's not just other people, they are a very good team, and again, they're a team that seems to just be built to win in the playoffs, and it's not a fluke anymore that they keep getting so far, right? You can look at one run and be like, okay, they got kind of lucky they played these teams, but I think both the Islanders and Tampa have had the hardest path so far to where they're at. I think you could probably maybe give it to Tampa, even though they've looked so good, but they did play two really good teams in Florida and Carolina, but Boston and Pittsburgh weren't easy either for the Islanders, so
yeah.
I mean, they're just one of those teams, they don't really have a superstar. I know Barzal is good, but he's not next level, and
under a different coaching system, I think he would be next level.
But yeah, again, with the coaching thing, I feel like Barry Trotz, right, he doesn't almost get enough props, and if for some reason they did manage to beat Tampa, which I don't see happening, but let's just say they do, then I think Trotz needs a ton of respect.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good series, this one, and I could see the Islanders pulling it off, but it's going to come down to goaltending, I think, and Vasilevsky is kind of the game changer there, yeah.
Yeah.
I look forward to Tampa and Islanders, and they kick off, I think, on Sunday the 13th. And Montreal versus Vegas should be interesting. They have the subplot of Nick Suzuki and Max Pacioretty from the trade 2 years ago.
Yeah, and oldest team versus newest team. And, 24 Stanley Cups versus 0. There's a ton of storylines there. All the French players for Vegas, I think there's more French players on Vegas than there is for Montreal, so It's one of those weird things. But yeah, I think it will be good. I think there might even be like a bit of hatred, like for teams that, like, this is kind of the exciting part. I'm going on like 3 different tangents now, but because we haven't seen these teams play all year, right? We honestly have no idea what to expect with these teams matching up against one another, and I kind of expect there to be more fireworks in the Montreal-Vegas series than in the Tampa Islanders series, even though those two played each other last year, obviously, so they have more history, but just something about that Vegas series kind of screams a bit of like animosity, so we'll see.
And 3 Eastern Conference teams remaining.
Yeah.
Out of 4.
Could easily be 2 Eastern teams in the final.
Could easily. Go Montreal. I'll vote for Montreal. So moving on, do you want to talk anything else about those 2 upcoming series?
No, I'm just excited to watch them, basically.
Yeah, me too. We can just alternate on the award finalists.
Sure,
They've named a bunch. Since we talked last time, we mentioned the Ted Lindsay and the Vezina for the goalies last time, and they've come out with pretty much all of the remaining nominations. So I'll start off first. They put the Selke out there, and no surprise really in Barkov, Bergeron, and Stone.
Yes. So Lady Bing was Matthews, Slavin, and Spurgeon, which is kind of interesting. They have the 2 defensemen because normally speaking they don't get nominated for that award. So
no, and usually it's wingers, and Matthews is centerman too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is an interesting one. Jack Adams, Rod Brindamore, Dean Evison, and Joel Quenneville in Carolina, Minnesota, and Florida. 2 of the top 3 in that whatever South Division or whatever, and then Dean Evison in Minnesota. He did a good job this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he wins.
Mm-hmm.
Just based off of the surprise. So then the Hart is the 3 M's. So McDavid, Matthews, and McKinnon. I feel like maybe the surprise would be McKinnon for this year, but it's not really that much of a surprise. But it's McDavid's award this year. So.
Yeah, I agree. And then they also came out with the Norris for the defense, and it was Hedman, Fox, and Makar. And I think Hedman will probably get it. I think we talked about him at the halfway point of the year.
I'd be shocked if the other 2 do, but I know like Fox had a really good year offensively, and Makar was pretty good, but he was also hurt. I just think it's Hedman. And then lastly is the Calder, and that was Kaprizov, Nedeljkovic, and Robertson, and I think it's Kaprizov's pretty.
Yeah, Robertson made a hell of a run at the end of the year, and they don't usually give it to the goalies once in a while, but they have to be like incredible.
Yeah.
So I think you're right on the Kaprizov thing, and beyond that, like we'll talk about when they do the winners. We'll talk about our predictions mid-season and compare them and see how smart we aren't. And then from there, the final note I had is Canada, after starting the World Championship 0-3 with a couple embarrassing losses, came back and won gold at the World Championships against Finland in the final in overtime.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I think a couple notes from that, like Gerard Gallant, I think is like kind of back in the spotlight. And I know like the Rangers have interviewed him a bunch, but they're one of the teams I think that's waiting on Brindamore too. I think he's going to get another NHL job just almost based purely off of what he did with this team at the World Championships. Troy Stetcher made a couple really nice plays. I know everyone, I am still kind of bitter about him leaving the Canucks. Maybe more than Toffoli, but maybe not. It's like borderline. But I wouldn't be surprised maybe if Detroit flips him to someone because, again, of his play here. So that was cool to see. And then, like, Mangiapane, who we've talked about a lot, was really impressive as well. And Connor Brown, again, talked about a lot. He looked really good. And, yeah, good for those guys. I mean, it must have been a hard year to go over there because they basically had to go and stay in a bubble. And usually part of the kind of allure of going there is they get to go to kind of a cool European city and check it out.
Yeah, be tourists and have some fun.
Yeah, so it would have been a kind of sad year to do that, but good for them for going over and getting it done.
Yeah, big time. Go Canada. That's all I've got for notes and news and things. So I think until next time, we'll end up capping off what's going into the Stanley Cup Finals and any news that falls in between now and then as well, unless some crazy stuff goes down.
Yeah, sounds good.
Alrighty, well, thank you for listening to episode 39 of Hockey Talk on the Rock. It's Laura and Keith, and we will be back.